Hey everyone, it's Steve from the garden. Well, now that October is here, it's time for me to plant my garlic for the 23 growing season. Now today is October 1st. I usually plant my garlic around October 15th. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you my initial ground prep, and then we'll come back in 2 weeks for the actual planting of the garlic itself. This is the area where I'm going to be planting garlic, and you can kind of see that the level of soil in this bed has dropped down. And I got other plants in here right now. So the first thing I want to do is clear out this lettuce, which is starting to bolt. I will just cut that off at ground level. With the lettuce cleared out, now I want to pull all these wood chips back and I want to pop them into this tote so I can use them later. Wood chips out of the way, now I'm right at the bare soil. And what I want to do now is I'm going to put down some balanced organic fertilizer in here. Because this is about the level where the roots are going to sit for the garlic plants. To bring up the soil level of the bed, I have a couple different composts that I made myself that I'm going to use. This is the one that contains a lot of worm castings in it, and it's one I actually made at the beginning of the spring. And I'll use about 2 5-gallon buckets worth. And you can see, I'll bring it in close, but you can see the worms in here, and those will be added to the bed. This is the compost I'm going to be putting on the bottom. Some of it's still a little chunky, but you can see there's a lot of good worm activity in there, so there's a lot of good castings also. So I'll fill some buckets up, and we'll put this on the bottom. The worm casting compost, I'll just put just a real thin layer on here. They'll give whatever worms remain a new home, and it'll form another nutrient base in addition to the fertilizer I put down. With it all dumped out, then I just kind of spread it around so I get a good distribution of it. The next layer of compost is from my Johnson Sioux bioreactor. Now this has a different texture than the worm casting pile, but I'll spread it on the same way. This compost also has worms in it, so we'll leave those in there and they just get a new home. You can see I raised up the level quite a bit now, and I'm not going to top it out 100% just because I still have to put wood chips on here. That does it for ground prep. Since it's going to be a couple more weeks before I actually plant the garlic cloves, I'm just covering the bed with my woven ground cover to keep any weeds or animals or anything else out of here. And we'll come back in 2 weeks and we'll plant those garlic. A couple of weeks have passed since I fertilized the beds, and now it's time to actually plant the garlic itself. So I have 3 varieties I'm planting this year. It's Chestnut Red, Metechi, and Music. The first variety I'm breaking apart here is the Chestnut Red. And I'm using this tray here just to kind of contain the mess. What I usually do is just remove some of the outer skin so I can see the divisions here, and then I can just use a knife to kind of cut through some of those divisions, and then I can kind of flip them apart a little bit here. This year I'm going to be planting 40 of each variety. Now that's less than what I planted last year, but last year I planted more than I really needed. And my son's going off to college next year, so I probably won't need as much garlic anyways. Now for the cloves, you want to leave these skins on as much as possible. So like this one where the skin peeled on the outside, I'll just use this for in the kitchen and then keep the good one for planting outside. Now for these small ones like this, I got a big one and a small one. So that small one I'll just take off, that gets used in the kitchen, and this is what I'll plant. I finished breaking apart all the cloves of garlic, and I want to show you the difference of the size of the cloves. Now this variety is Music, and this variety is known for producing very large cloves. Now they don't produce as many cloves per bulb, but the cloves are quite big. This is Chestnut Red. Now this also produced a really big clove, Not as big as the music, but it's very close. And in comparison, this is Metechi. Now this is one of the larger ones. In Metechi, while it produced good sized bulbs, the cloves tended to be smaller and there's more cloves per bulb. Jason and Colleen at Clive's Conundrum Garden had posed the question, is bigger always better when it comes to planting the garlic? And one of the things that they had put out there was, if you only need a little bit of garlic and you have a giant clove like this, well, you only need maybe, half or less of this clove for a recipe. So that's where having another variety that's known for producing more cloves per bulb can come into play. So if you have a recipe that only needs a little bit of garlic, Metechi might be a very good choice because you'd get a smaller clove to fit the recipe that you're using. Now just a note, the Chestnut Red this is like the third season I've grown this from my own seed. So this year's planting will be the fourth year. Music, this will be my second year of growing my own seed, my third year of planting for this season. And Metechi, this will be my first year of growing this from my own seed. Since I'm saving my own garlic seed from one year to the next, I have noticed that over time I'm getting larger bulbs at the harvest time. And I'm sure that's partly because I'm just doing my own selective breeding program here where I'm always selecting the largest cloves, and therefore I'm kind of breeding in that genetics of getting bigger bulbs and bigger cloves for harvest time. But just for reference, this is why I did not choose to plant this year from the garlic I broke apart today. Now these I will turn into garlic powder or just use up in the kitchen. The bed I'm planting the garlic in this year is 34 inches wide. And I'm going to start the cloves 4 inches off the side and off the back and do 5 inches between each row with 5 inches between each clove within the row. Now for all you people that follow that crazy metric system, it's 86 centimeters wide with 10 centimeters off the ends and 12.7 centimeters between each row and within each clove within the row. For laying out the spacing, I just use some screws. I screw into the end of the bed, then run string between them where I've already measured out the width. And I measured out 4 inches off the end, and I'm just going to use my tape measure here to get my spacing. Now, is it really necessary to be this precise? No, it's not. But it's simple enough to set this up and it keeps you on track. So I'm just going to take the cloves and stick them down so that the tops of them are about an inch below the soil. Now if you remember when we fertilized, I put that fertilizer on first way at the bottom because that's where the roots are going to be, and that's where we want the nutrition to start. So for me, music always finishes first. So the music will be on the south side of the bed. And then the middle will be Metechi, because that's what finishes next. And then on the north side of the bed will be Chestnut Red, which always finishes last. For actually planting the cloves, you want the pointy end to be facing up, because the bottom is where the roots are. And you can see the bottom's got like that flat side to it. And you want the top of the garlic to be about 1 inch or 1 to 1.5 inches below the soil. I have all the Metechi planted, so now I'm moving on to the Chestnut Red. Now if you're wondering why I'm planting the garlic in the order I am, one is because mentally that's how I think about harvesting them. But two, as each one finishes up, and they finish up 7 to 10 days apart from each other. So as each one finishes up, it'll open up sunlight for that next one to be harvested. So during that last 7 to 10 days before I harvest, it gets a little extra sunlight during that time. Now, another question you might ask is, do I really need this much garlic for a family of 4? The answer to that is no, I don't necessarily need this much. But you also have to keep in mind that because I save my own garlic seed each year, I need to have enough good cloves or good bulbs for replanting the next year. So the law of averages, I'm going to keep, say, 9 or 10 good bulbs at the end of the season. So I need enough planted to be able to, kind of hit that ratio. Plus, not every bulb or not every clove I plant is necessarily going to survive the winter time. I kind of expect to lose, say, 10% from the cold in the winter, where they just don't make it for some reason. And another 10% might end up being, like the small ones. So by planting more than what I actually need, I'm just kind of falling in with that law of averages to get not only the seed garlic I need for the next year, but they have enough for my needs throughout the year. Because I grow like a year's worth of garlic when I plant them. It allows me to be totally self-sufficient on garlic for the next year. With the bed watered in, I'm going to now cover it with 2 to 3 inches of a wood mulch. The mulch is in place. It came out to probably about 3 inches thick. Now that's to help hold in moisture and also keep out weeds between now and springtime. And over the winter time, this will provide some extra insulation for the soil and for the cloves I planted. One final note when it comes to planting time. I did mention this in the beginning of the video, but I target October 15th for my planting date. And then today is actually October 14th, and this video will come out October 22nd. But what I'm waiting for is for the daytime temperatures to reach mid-50s or lower before I plant my garlic cloves. The reason for that is I want them to get established, grow some roots, and then go dormant for the winter time. If you plant them too early and it's too warm, they start growing vegetation on the top. Winter comes, kills that off, then the clove has to start over in the spring. Well, I hope you enjoyed coming along on my garlic planting adventure. Got something out of this, and we'll see you on the next one. You can see my hinge hoop house over there in the background. I got that propped open today. The high hit 53 today, and it's been sunny, so I had to make sure I propped it open so I don't bake everything underneath it.